My husband had got a new job, and with this job, it required us to relocate for his work purposes. It was just myself and my husband, so it wasn't too much of a hassle, and his new job came with a pay raise, so it would benefit us both in the long run. The area that we moved to in Chicago was said to be a nice and friendly area, and the house that we had acquired was a size up from the one we were previously living in. Spacious, already well decorated, and had been vacant for quite some time since its previous owners had left, so it was a great deal. We moved in pretty quick with it already being empty. The process was smooth and less stressful than moving would usually be. Upon our arrival and hiring a moving company, the first few days were pretty much sorting out our belongings and furniture and getting them moved in. I was pretty excited to start this new chapter of our lives in a new house and couldn't wait to get everything sorted and settle in. One night, after we had recently moved in, I'd say around 3 days of being there, I woke up to some noises coming from the attic. The noises sounded like slight banging and knocking, but repetitive. For a minute or so, I listened. Then I woke my husband up to tell him that I could hear what I was hearing. Half asleep, obviously. He listened for a minute or two, then the noise stopped. Unlike me, he didn't seem that bothered. He said to me not to worry, that it was nothing, that the house was old and it was probably old pipes. He claimed that they would tend to make noise when the weight of the water passed through them, or if anything, it could be a squirrel or something up there. If it continued over the next few days, he'd check it out. After our short discussion, it put me at ease. Thinking nothing more of it, we went back to sleep. The next day was my husband's first official day at his new job, so he woke up early. I followed shortly after to make an early start on finishing the rest of the unpacking and making the place less cluttered and feel more homey. I was sorting through our boxes and putting things away when I noticed one of the boxes was missing. I had misplaced a box containing our digital equipment, our camera, camcorder, and the likes of my old Polaroid that had been in my family for years. All of the boxes were labeled, and I definitely couldn't see it anywhere. I didn't want to mention it to my husband, as a lot of his stuff was in there too, so I planned to search the basement where we had placed a lot of the boxes before mentioning anything. Plus, I didn't want to bother him on his first day. I did, though, find it strange, as I could have swore I placed it in the front room. I mentioned to my husband when he got back that I was having trouble finding certain things. He told me he was exhausted, and so was I from moving, and that I should relax. There was no rush to sort it all out in our first week, and that everything would turn up at some point. I somewhat agreed and decided to brush it off. I had decided to have a drink that night to see if I could get a better night's sleep, and for the majority it worked. But even with that, in the early hours, the same sound I'd heard the night before woke me again. It freaked me out. It sounded like more than just a pipe to me. I woke up my husband, and to his annoyance, he said he would go check it out if it would put me at ease. He went up to the attic and looked around in the darkness, lighting it up with a flashlight. There was nothing there. Just some dead junk that would need to be cleared out, my husband said. I was a bit more relieved after that and went back to sleep. However, the night after brought me to the edge. Around 3 a.m., I got up to use the restroom. A shudder of fear consumed me as I swore I saw a figure pass our bedroom door in the hallway. Suddenly awake with adrenaline coursing through my veins, I feared an intruder was in the house. I again woke up my husband, who by then must have been thinking I was crazy and paranoid. We looked around the whole house, but there was nobody in sight. But I wasn't settled this time, half asleep or not. I knew what I saw and what my gut was telling me. The next day, when my husband had left for work, and with it being the daytime, I decided to check the attic myself, feeling more comfortable and less scared as I would at night. I grabbed the flashlight and proceeded to go into the attic. As I fully got up there, my husband was right. Pretty empty, with just some leftover junk I take it no one could be bothered to clear. As I explored further into the attic, I noticed a few boards looked out of place towards what looked to be the back of the attic. I went over to them and saw that they were loose. I began to move them. And to my horror, what I uncovered behind there was a crawl space which was anything but empty. There was a blanket and pillow behind there, amongst needles and syringes. Not only that, but the box containing our cameras and electronics I thought I'd misplaced days before. My heart began to pound as I couldn't believe what I saw. Polaroids that had recently been taken. Pictures of me around the house, unpacking boxes and tidying up. Pictures of me and my husband showering. The camera was also out. I turned it on and the blood in my veins turned to ice as I played a video that was dated the night before. On the video was darkness, someone shuffling around, then coming into picture was my bedroom door opening and someone entering our room as me and my husband slept. I felt sick to my stomach as the person with the camera filmed us. They got closer to our bed and was standing right over me as I slept, zooming in on my face. My skin crawled as on the video, a pale, dirty, long yellow-nailed hand covered over my face, so close that it motioned stroking my face before filming into the mirror and waving at their own sick reflection. I backed up and slowly left the room as the video ended. Tears rolled down my face. I quickly turned around fearing whoever that was on the video was still up there. The worst outcomes running through my head. I had never been so scared. I ran to climb out of the attic as I looked back up to an empty dark hole, half expecting to see a face. I called the police and then my husband straight away notifying him. The police arrived and searched our home, but nobody was there. The scary thing is, no suspect was ever found and no one ever returned. The police closed the case. It remains unsolved. They just put it down to the fact that the house had been vacant for so long a squatter may have been living up there before we moved in. That was no comfort to me. On that video, I only saw the guy's hand, and just from that, I knew this was not somebody you ever wanted to meet. To be watched in your own house and knowing some freak was in what you think is your safe place, you never feel safe again. This happened over a year ago now, and even today, I find myself looking over my shoulder. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I was 15 years old when this traumatic experience happened to me. I still think about it to this day as it's a memory that's stuck with me throughout the years. Myself, along with a group of old friends, were looking for something new to do in our town, a thrill, and somewhat an adventure one night, as we were outdoors and adventurous kids who didn't really like to stay indoors. We all lived local to each other and went to the same school. We knew of an old, abandoned train yard situated in our town. It was a railway line that hadn't been used in years. A new system and station had been set up, and the old one was just left to store old trains, carts, and other vehicles no longer in use. Between the four of us, we thought this would be a great place to go and explore one night, where we could camp out and spend the night. We had done this before in the woods. We would just tell each other's parents that we were staying at each other's house, so they didn't actually know we were staying out all night. That night, we made our way to the train yard. When we reached it, it was what we had pictured, full of rusted, abandoned trains that had decayed over time, and at night, it was the perfect setting with that eerie atmosphere, mostly brought on by our own thoughts, but we loved it. We had managed to sneak a few drinks with us. At that age, it obviously made you feel big and cool. We chose a spot and set up our stuff and had been chatting for a good half hour when one of my friends suggested we play a game of hide and seek. We were all up for it as we wanted to explore the yard and go into some of the abandoned train carts. The loser would have to do a forfeit though. So when we had chosen the seeker, the rest of us split off to find the best hiding places we could. I managed to break off and get some distance from the rest as I searched for an opening to one of the decaying trains. I managed to find access as one of the door panels was completely missing. So I pulled myself up and made my way through one of the carts right to the end and chose a corner behind some of the remaining train seats to cram myself down and hide as the darkness covered the area. I was hiding for a good 2 minutes when I heard my friend's footsteps on the outside of the train running past on the rubble. I tucked myself in further in case he came into the cart. I peeked my head out from behind the seat and stared down the cart all the way to where I had come in and the door leading to the next adjoining cart. He didn't enter. I noticed he must have gone straight past. Just when I was about to sit back, I jumped when I heard a loud tapping on the window of the cart opposite of me. As I looked over, I couldn't see anything, but I knew I definitely heard a clear tapping. Convinced it was my friend and that he knew where I was and was now just messing with me, I got up and cautiously made my way over to the door to the next compartment. I looked through expecting to see him, but what I saw instead made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. As I looked through into that cart, I was also looking to the eyes of a strange woman who stood there motionless in the middle of the cart, staring straight back at me. Her hair was unraveled and dirty. Her clothes were tattered and worn, and the pale complexion of her skin looked deathly. But what scared me the most was her eyes, the way she looked at me with menace and a wild expression fixed into them. I could feel my pulse racing when the woman walked out of sight. I remember thinking that was impossible. Where could she have gone? Unless she had hidden behind some of the seats, but I would have seen that. I don't know what possessed me to do what I did next, but for some reason, I opened the door and walked into the cart, when what I should have done was got the hell out of that train. But I was curious to find the woman. I noticed instantly that contrary to outside, the temperature in that cart was freezing. I didn't know why that was, and I found it strange. I only took a few more steps as I couldn't bring myself to go any further down to the end of that cart. As I had finally had second thoughts about what I was doing, I could not see the woman, and it was too dark at the end of the cart. As I was about to turn and get myself out of there, shivers ran down my spine and my heart raced faster than it ever had before. As all I heard, in a hoarse whisper from behind me, was, "Found you." When suddenly the feeling of a hand brushed my shoulder, I quickly turned to come face to face with the same deathly-looking woman standing right behind me. And I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified. I fell backwards as I screamed out all the air I had stored in my body as I hit the floor. Afraid to open my eyes, I managed to do so, and to my shock, I was staring into an empty cart. It was then, from behind me, two of my friends appeared from where I had entered, looking shocked and confused. I scrambled my way over to them and off the cart. As they asked me if I was okay, shaking from head to toe, I explained to them what I had just seen, but it only seemed to raise a laugh out of them as they didn't believe me. It was only then when my other friend quickly joined us with a pale face and a scared look etched across it as he said, I was telling the truth, and that he had seen her on the cart through the window too. With the other two finally coming to terms with this and believing us, we gathered our things and got the hell out of there, never looking back. That was 8 years ago, and the memory still lives with me today, as I don't know how to explain what I saw that night. I understand some people might not believe in these things and the paranormal, but for me, seeing is believing. After it happened, we tried to look into the history of accidents that may have happened there, but couldn't really find anything. There was definitely something paranormal there, and the mystery of that woman and why I saw her still remains unknown to me. But thankfully, nothing like that has ever happened to me since. Probably because I don't venture into abandoned places anymore. Thank you for listening to these chilling encounters. And wow, I just want to take a second to give a shout out to the Horror Motives family. We recently hit 350 subscribers this week, so literally, I just want to thank you all for watching and being a part of this horror community. We hope you're enjoying the terrifying content. It really means a lot, you guys, and you are all appreciated. We look forward to this horror community and our world of horror motives growing along with you all, and can't wait to bring you some new and original terrifying content that we have planned. So until next time, let's keep growing and spreading the fear. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell, like, comment, share, and above all, remember that fear lies within.